And 3, 2, 1. Hello and welcome to another edition of A Humanistic Perspective. I'm really fortunate this week, as always, to be sitting down with my co-host, Chris Gatos. I'm Chad Castilla, and this week we have the privilege of being joined with Brimstone. He is a multifaceted man, including acting, wrestling, podcasting, and I guess I always like to start maybe from your perspective. How would you introduce yourself to people? What is sort of the thing that you're leading with the most right now in life as your introduction?
I'm an a-hole. No, I'm just kidding. Pretty cool. First and foremost, I want to say thank you guys. Finally, Brimstone has made it to a humanistic perspective. So this is fantastic. Super excited to be hanging with you guys today. At the end of the day, Brimstone as a whole, I mean, I am a brand. A lot of people, will say, all right, well, he's a celebrity, he's an entertainment entrepreneur, blah,
Sure.
blah, 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 blah. I'm kind of one of those guys that I wear many hats, jack of all trades, master of none. And the reason why I say master of none is simply because anybody who thinks they're a master of something truly has already failed, because you always learn until your dying day. You continue to learn. So nobody can ever claim to be a master. Things are always, growing and
progressing.
and, people need to learn. So
I entirely agree with that idea. Like I think I was fortunate enough when I was going through college to realize that the cognitive growth aspect of just wanting to learn and discover something new is the biggest driving factor in keeping me going, and especially leading on to this show. And I wanted to go back. How did you even get into this path, and where were you raised maybe, and where are you located now, and how did you get there?
I'm in New York. I've always been a New York boy. I'm a Long Island boy.
Nice.
It's funny because, on the local TV, where the local News 12,
Sure.
which is big here, and it's funny, because I tour all around the world, but it's always nice to get some love when I'm at home. And it's Long Island's own Brimstone. It's like, oh, that's so sweet, guys, but so I am from Long Island. I grew up here. I'm 46 now. I've been in entertainment since I'm 5. My mother,
Wow.
my mother actually put me into the acting scene. She always thought that I was a cute kid. I'm not so cute now, but when I was a kid, she had brought me into Manhattan. We're about 45 minutes on a good day, 3 hours on a bad day, from New York City. So she would bring me in there and bring me to castings and so forth. I remember at a young age, I was doing castings for Rice Krispies and A1 steak sauce and stuff like
Nice.
that.
Wow.
And then, I wound up getting, I just found the papers. My mother passed away about 3 years ago. So we've been
So sorry for the loss.
Thank you very much. We've been cleaning out our house, and she was a bit of a hoarder. So I never thought I'd find anything like certain things that I've been finding. And one of them was actually, we just found the contracts that I had with a couple of different agents. So I was actually represented when I was younger, and which I never knew. And I wound up signing to Children's Television Network, and I found the contract for that too, for 3 months, of me being on Sesame Street. So that was really cool. So I was a child actor on Sesame Street.
Were your parents performers themselves, or were they just interested in getting you on the stage? Was it something that you were a knack at and you wanted to do yourself? Or?
My father, well, first of all, 5 years old, you don't know what the hell you want to do. But
Facts.
and remember, you guys are young. When I was a kid, we didn't have TV like we have now. We're talking about, streaming might have just come over the last few years, but at the end of the day, we didn't have internet. We didn't have, on demand. We had, basic little, not even cable. It was like a little box that you clicked buttons and you had maybe 10 channels to play with. So, it was a different animal back then, but, I always loved Sesame Street and Romper Room. And I don't know if that was one of the things that initiated my mother to bring me there. She was not in entertainment. My father was in entertainment, and that was cut short. But he still plays, he still sings, and he still does little mini appearances, for fun, here, there, and everywhere. He's in Florida now. My parents were divorced when I was young. See, that's what cut me off. when I started kind of catching a little steam there, my
Mm.
mother was bringing me into a lot of different auditions, and then certain days turned out to be days that I was supposed to be with my father. So my father and my mother started, butting heads, because at that point, things were not amicable, and it is what it is. So wound up, I wound up being cut off at the knees, and I didn't get to continue when I was
Mm.
a youngin. But then I turned to, art. I used to, I was growing up. I must have been like 9, 10. I started getting really into comic books, and GI Joe was my thing. Like, I used to
Hell
love
yes.
GI Joe, and which is really funny because I'll tell you, and I also love like the X-Men. The Beast was my favorite character, and loved everything about Marvel. And loved a little bit of Batman here and there. And what's really funny is that years later things come full circle. GI Joe, Larry Hama is a friend of mine. What do you call
Mhm.
it? Snake Eyes was my favorite character, and Ray Park, who played Snake Eyes in 2 or 3 of the GI Joe films, is one of my close friends. Stan Lee was one of my good friends, but he passed
Before he
obviously a couple of
passed,
years
yeah.
ago. But I'm the celebrity spokesperson for his foundation.
No kidding.
You're talking about, like, Batman. I mean, I know a bunch of the Batman artists. So it's funny how things have come full circle for me. But I had wanted to be a famous artist. I was like, I'm going to be an artist. That's what I'm going to do. I'm going to be an artist. And, I wasn't bad either. And then I wound up, when I was going to school, originally, they had us playing like violin and so forth.
Mhm.
Everybody's stuck playing violin when they first get. I don't know why they do that, but they do that. And then that, and what is that thing called? That
Oh,
little
the recorder?
the recorder. It's like,
Oh yeah, we had
come
that
on, man.
too. Third grade, everyone gets a recorder in their hands.
That's their goal of punishing the parents, because you're punishing the teachers having your children in their class. That's what it
Seriously.
is. They're sending it back home to you. So they send you the 2 worst things: the recorder and the violin. I mean, they could both be very beautiful. Most of the time, not, but they can be very beautiful.
In the right hands.
And the right hands. And so that being said, when they finally opened us up to band, what do you call it? I had the opportunity to pick an instrument, and I picked drums, and that was
Nice.
my actual first love. I became a drummer. I went to school for drumming.
So who
And
were you
music.
listening to? Yeah, who were the artists? What were the genres?
So my upbringing. Now I came from a town called Uniondale here in New York on Long Island, and Uniondale, you might know the Nassau Coliseum. You might have heard of that from
Mhm.
different concert. It's a big concert venue, sports venue, and so forth. And I was one of the only white kids in an entire black area. So for me, I grew up listening to hip hop. I was a hip hop guy. So very rap, very hip hop, and R&B, reggae, and my first tapes were Fat Boys, Run DMC, Houdini. And what's
Oh
funny
yeah.
is that, again, Run DMC is one of my closest friends now. The
Well,
guys from
how'd you meet him? How'd you do
that's a
that?
long story. You want me to get into that story? I'll get into that story.
Let's get into that story. I think let's keep going on. I wanted to sort of get to the trajectory of, like, you're in high school. Where are you going next? Are you going to college? What are you thinking in your head? Because you're an entertainer. You've been doing this and that. Like, did you go right into wrestling then, or what was next?
No, it's a long road in between.
Okay.
First and foremost, so all right. So I was listening to hip hop and rap, and I was, and like I said, I was a white kid in an all black area, and Hispanic area. And I'll get to the DMC stuff later, no problem. And then I wound up, before I went to middle school, my mother was like, I don't want you going to the middle school because it's a rough school. And I'm like, I don't care. I'm friends with everybody. This is my fam, like,
Yeah.
like, I'm white and I'm Jewish. So I was totally not, anything. There was nobody else like me there, but everybody
Sure.
treated me like an equal. And the only time that I would ever be with other white Jewish kids was when I went to temple like once a week.
Sure.
And that being said, my mother refused to let me go to the middle school, which I was pissed off at the time. And she sent me to a private Jewish school, which was complete culture shock, because here we were in lower middle class, and my this private school, was all white, all Jewish, and pretty much all upper class. And
Such
you
a
know,
different dichotomy than you were just experiencing.
completely different. So and not only that, but the interests were completely different. And you know, when I got in, I was not the same person, obviously, as I left, but I wound up you know, falling in love with, you know, different things that I had heard because I love music in general. I can listen to Disney and vibe, jazz, funk, rock, metal, hip hop, you name it, and I can vibe with it. I'm cool with all music as long as it's good.
Right.
That being said, you know, I wound up getting involved in rock and music and so forth. And you know, I started playing. My first band was, you know, in private school, and it was the first one was called Spitfire.
You
Then the
still
next
talk to
one was
those
called
guys?
Private School. Yeah, I still
Nice.
speak to the guys from the private school band. And funny
Nice.
enough, one of in Spitfire, the funny story is the singer for Spitfire was this kid named Andy Wilkow, and Andy Wilkow is now he refused to have anybody. He didn't want. I only have one tape of that band simply because somebody like snagged it. But he made a big stink. He didn't want any photos of him. He didn't want any video of him because he was adopted and didn't want his parents to find out where he was and who he was.
No kidding.
Wow.
So and you know what? And you know what? If you look up Andy Wilkow on Google, he's now a huge conservative what do you call it? Radio host who does
Commentator.
who's on like, you know, like thousands of people following in terms of um you know, political stuff. I'm just like, you were the guy who didn't want anybody to know who you
Right.
were,
Right.
and now you're doing the same stuff I am, except in a different realm. Like, come on, man. But
That's
anyway, so
funny.
yeah, so that happened there, and then
And you were the drummer for this band, right? For
and I was the
Spitfire?
drummer. Yeah, I was the
Yeah.
drummer. I mean, it was a nothing band. We were kids. Private
Yeah.
School was the second band, and that band, which was also from the private school. That's why we called it private school. Obviously, we started playing out and doing some fun stuff, and it was fun. We were kids. From there, my mother had, you know, not my mother. The school was closing down, and it was either graduate early, a year early, or go back to high school in Uniondale. So I told my mother, you know, like, I'll graduate early. She's like, there's no way you're graduating early. You're going to continue and you're going to do the last year of school. I was like, okay, whatever. So I wound up going to Uniondale High, and what do you call it? You know, here I am back with all my old friends, which I kept in touch with a lot of them. So I was always good. And you know, it was you know, now here I am as a very mixed blend of, you know, music and experience and so forth at a young age. So you know, I this first thing I did was I got into band and there and marching band because I always for some reason I always wanted to do marching band, but the drum corps lines were so amazing, you know, and
Yeah.
I wanted to play. So
That was my obsession too.
yeah. Oh, you're a drummer?
I did. I actually studied with a guy named Vern Spivak here in Illinois for a
Mhm.
period of time, but I started as a saxophone player on tenor sax, then picked up
Nice.
percussion, and then picked up singing, and sort of
There
did
you go.
those through high school.
Beautiful, beautiful. Well, so here I am, and I'm playing in band, and a lot of people, because the high school brought in from 3 different schools within the district. So, you know, I guess, you know, 2/4 of, I mean, 2/3 of the people didn't necessarily know who I was. So, you know, here I was, and they had this drum off, and you had, you know, everybody else playing like these hip hop songs, and you know, then everybody's like, yeah, and they're getting, you know, enjoying the hell out of it. And then here I am, and I pull up, and I've got this drum kit set up, and
Hell
very
yeah.
very rock drum kit, and
You have double
what do you
bass
call it?
going and everything.
No, not yet, not yet.
Not
Actually,
yet.
I might have. But I had at the time I had a friend that was able to splice things together. So I was like, I'm gonna screw with everybody. And so I don't know if you guys know any Led Zeppelin,
Yeah, of course.
and do you know who Black Sheep is?
I don't
That's
know
not-
if I'm familiar with Black Sheep.
Okay. So what do you call it? What I had him do was at the beginning of you know, one of the songs is, hey, hey, mama said the way you move, gonna make you sweat, gonna make you groove.
Of course.
Yeah.
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 So what do you call it? So we're sitting there. I started with that. It's like, and everybody goes, oh, like, oh, because they were just, it was not their stuff. And then all of a sudden it clicked back, and it goes right into The Choice Is Yours from Black Sheep. So, who's the black sheep? What's the black sheep? No, not who you know what I mean? So you
That's
probably
such a
heard the
good
song.
sample.
Engine number 9 on the New York Transit line. If my train goes off the track, pick it up, pick it up, pick it up. Back
I bet
on the
that was
scene.
so badass in the moment.
Everybody was like, oh, it was like, go white boy, go.
Yeah.
So that being said, my whole career in music, I always did a big blend. And one, that gave me a lot of street cred there. And
Yeah.
at the end of the day, they realized, music is music. And everybody kind of vibed. And that was a really cool feeling there.
It seems to me almost as if you had I want to, I guess, was this more your creative vision, or were you a master marketer and you just knew what would sell to the audience you were playing to at the time?
You know what? I'd love to say that I was a master marketer, but I was kind of coming into my own. So maybe,
Okay.
maybe, maybe it was the beginnings of
Sure.
being a marketer, and learning how to market myself. But if it was not unintentional. You know what
Sure.
I mean? It was unintentional. And it was, I just, certain moments you always that they just stick out. And that's one that has always stuck out in my mind. So
Mhm.
from there, my parents, my mother and my stepfather were buying a house in another area, and what do you call it, moving out of Uniondale. But I convinced them to let me finish out my school year in Uniondale,
Nice.
finish it out, and then I was going to school. So I was going to school for music. And what do you call it? I went to Nassau Community College, which was 13th grade, but I didn't care. I was going for music, and I just wanted to continue playing. And from there, I wound up getting into a couple we created some bands. That was the first time I did real radio and all that jazz. Was at Nassau Community College, and I
Nice.
was a guest, and then and guest hosted and did all that stuff. It became a home over there, which is again another full circle type of thing, doing podcasting and radio now. But it was really cool because I got very involved in the scene. And I got into it with a couple of different people. I did a band called Image, which was progressive metal.
Nice.
No singing, it was just music. And we
That's
started
my
playing
favorite.
out. Yeah, it was a lot of fun. And we did that. And then that was time to end. And my favorite band that I was in was Who's Laughing Now. And anybody who's really interested, you can go to my official website, therealbrimstone.com.
By the
And
way, well-built website.
thank you very much.
Yeah,
Thank
it's
you. Thank
amazing.
you. I worked hard on that. So,
Yeah. I can imagine.
I did that myself. And I did the whole Grindhouse radio site myself too. And I rebuilt and rebranded everything this past year. So, but that being said, it's the first time I've ever had any of my old school music up on my official website. So anybody who's interested in checking out, you can check that out. But Who's Laughing Now was my favorite, and where we started playing and touring a little and doing things, and you know what I mean, and just like the energy. That's really when I decided, whether it's this, that, or the next thing, entertainment was my thing. Aside from the
Sure.
fact that I slept with a lot of girls in college and got a lot of, you know what I mean,
Running
a lot
around,
of,
doing your thing.
I did my thing. And essentially, for me, like music was everything at the time. And and I'm blessed to say, the people that I had up on my walls are now either friends of mine, or we've met over time and so forth. And it's funny
If
because
that
I've met
isn't
them.
the pinnacle of success right there,
That's
It's a
yeah.
it's a beautiful thing. Success, even though I do well, success isn't about money. Success
Right.
is about experience, leaving a legacy,
Mm,
building something that was nothing into something that's an empire. That's success. People like to measure in dollars and cents, but it's not all dollars and cents. You can't take money with you when you die. You know what I mean?
facts.
Where's that going to go? But you can sure as hell leave a legacy.
Yep.
And I wanted to, I was determined to leave a legacy. When you've got people singing your lyrics back to you, you know what I mean?
Mm,
And they're and mosh pits going to your music, like that was like this is what I want to do. This is where I want to be. And, and again, my style in music, I was a very big cross between hip hop and metal. So I'd always throw the hip hop grooves in, you know what I mean? Where before it was popular, you
I
know
don't
what
know
I
if you're
mean? Like,
familiar with Death Grips at all, the band, but that sounds
sounds familiar.
very, very similar to things that Death Grips doing now, but you were doing it way before.
I was doing it in 95, like,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? Like, it was before, a lot of these bands came out and were just like a crossover band. Had I known some of the people I know now, we would have done some killer stuff together then. And we might be doing some killer stuff together soon. So, we'll get
Ooh,
to
new
that.
projects in the works?
Yeah, maybe, but I can't talk about it
Sure.
officially right now. But I can say that a bunch of other celebrities, and I have been talking. We've all been discussing doing maybe a side project. So if
Cool.
that happens, everybody will know about it. We'll have a lot of fun with that.
Awesome.
But I
Cool.
I
Love to
definitely
promote
want to
that.
definitely want to play again. It's just time. Got to find the time. But nowadays, it's as easy as sitting in your own studio or in your house recording, and then you send your tracks to the next person. So
Yep.
it's so much different, so different than it was.
What's your preferred DAW? What do you work out of?
Here in where in terms of what?
For
terms
your music. For
the music, I have no idea because I don't do the engineering.
Got it.
But I can tell you what we use here in the studio for all the for all the voice work and
Sure.
so forth. I mean, in terms of all of our equipment, I believe, what is it? Oh my God, I can't even believe, what is that? Blah, 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 blah. Not the interface, it's a DAW. See, my brain that does not work.
Pro Tools?
No, we use Ableton. Ableton Live.
Nice.
Ableton Live, which is also good for music from what I'm told. And I'm learning a little bit of the engineering side as we go. But I'm intimidated by the engineering simply because I just don't have the time to learn it.
Sure. Yeah.
But yeah. And then there's a new DAW as well that is coming. It comes in this new, I told you guys about the new Fox Bayer dynamic mic.
Yep.
They have this new kit that I don't know what the name of what the name of it is, but it's an actual program that you can utilize as well, and that can be used for podcasting or music.
Cool.
When I remember what it is, I'll let you know. But my brain, I'm sorry, it's early.
No, I know. Same here.
Agreed.
I can tell you all the equipment, but I get confused on some of the names with the studio stuff. I can tell you whatever microphone thing you need and whatever headphone thing you need, though.
There you go. Hell yeah. So when you're performing as a musician at this time and stuff, are you worried about your financial future? Are you worried about what's happening? Or are you just, being young, running with the life and knowing like, you know what, I want to be entertaining in whatever facet that means for me?
A lot of people get caught up in the concern about money and where am I going to make money and how am I going to make money? If you're in it and you're pushing hard and you're working hard, the money will come. So when I was younger, I lived at home at that point. So, I wasn't concerned about making anything, crazy, but I was making money. Because when I was playing out, I would get a percentage of the money, even though we should have been doing it and building it as a business, which was one of the things I learned from music moving forward into other things is it should have been built as a business. We should not have taken the money out and it should have went into, a business account. We should have built out from there. But, again, I wasn't super concerned about it because, again, things take time and people seem to want that immediate, satisfaction and instant gratification, like what you get nowadays.
Sure.
Back then, things were a little slower. It wasn't as crazy. You didn't have to worry about it as much. You know what I mean? Things were less expensive, but that also changes over time. So, listen, when I was younger, gas was 95 cents a gallon. You know what I mean? Like, and before that, it was a lot cheaper. So, for me, it's back in my day, but,
Right.
so I wasn't really concerned. But the older I got, and when I was in a relationship and then, I got married to my first wife and I had my daughter, I did think about money, but I was also still involved in the business. not music, I wound up getting into wrestling. And again, that's a whole story in itself.
Yeah,
But
I'm ready to go
the
down that road too.
yeah, the music thing was amazing. And when you're playing in a band, the problem with it is, and if you've played before, as you know,
Mhm.
you're not dealing with just one personality, like, if it's your wife or your girlfriend and so forth. You're dealing with five different personalities
And
or
they're
four
all
different personalities.
creatives.
Yeah, well, somewhat. Some of them are idiots. I wouldn't even call
Sure.
them creative. But yeah, no, they're all creative types, or very. A lot of people are very, push and pull. You know what I mean?
Mm.
They're not necessarily, they don't want to necessarily work with anybody. They just, it's a very, very big issue. One of the things I had an opportunity to have, one of the well, Who's Laughing Now, signed to a major label. East West Recording came in and heard us playing. That I was asked to We were asked to open, because I was friends with a lot of people in the industry. I was the one that was friends with everybody.
Sure.
And they came down. I'm sorry, and it was a band called Red Belly, and Red Belly was signed to East West, and they go, Brim. Well, I wasn't Brim then; it was just Will. But what do you call? They're like, Will. We really need an opening act, and we think you guys would kill. And I know, and they knew I had a reputation in the club they were playing. Was called Industry. It was one of the biggest rock metal clubs in the area at the time, and used to pack a few thousand people in there at a clip.
Nice.
And
That's a good size room.
it was really, really cool. But now they had the big room, which was the club. Then they had a smaller room, which they were doing like these type of things in. So I was like, all right, yeah, sure. We wound up opening for them, and we because aside from the fact that we were good, and we were energetic, the people in the club knew that I was in there. And they packed in. Again, I was very popular in the scene back when, and they packed in. And what do you call it? As soon as we were off stage, before Red Belly even got to go on, and they were really good, everybody bounced out of the room, and they played to like maybe 20 people. I felt so awful because they had asked me to do the gig. And what do you call it? I'm still friendly with Eddie from the band, but what do you call it? At the end of the day, uh, we were offered a contract, and one or two of the guys in the band were like, no, I'm not selling out. I'm not doing that. I'm like, what do you mean you're not selling out? I wanted to live in a freaking van and tour. And I'm like, you're out of your goddamn mind.
Yeah.
And it was not what I wanted to do. Then I made the mistake of getting into the other band, Bugsy, with two of the same idiots that I shouldn't have been in the band with to begin with. And but whatever. I mean, look, we made good music together. I'm not gonna lie. We made good music together. And when it was time for me to be done, I said I got sick of a five-way marriage. It was
Yeah.
done, and I left Bugsy, and that was it for me with music. In terms of being able to go out and play in bands and so forth, simply because I didn't have time. Pro wrestling
Mm.
happened, and what happened with that is because I was in such a powerful position in music on Long Island and in Manhattan. I knew everybody. I knew all the club owners. I was the guy that did all the business.
Yeah, you were
I'm the like
managing the
I got all
bands.
the gigs. Oh my God, some of these guys didn't even want to be in pictures. They didn't want to do interviews. I'm like, well, then how do you expect people to know who you are?
Yeah.
Underground, man, underground. Gosh, shut the hell up. At the end of the day, listen, you do you, boo boo. I'm
Yeah.
good. I need to
Right.
move forward. I need to
It's still a
progress.
business though at the end of the day too.
Yeah.
It's a business. You need to be able to pick it up and move forward.
Yes.
What do you call it? And the only person that there's only two people from either of those bands that in Who's Laughing Now, Bugsy, that I still talk to, and
Mm.
I'm very close with, the singer and one of the guitarists, and the other ones are just I could do without them. And the fact is that you just sometimes you just build apart, you grow apart. And and after I left, that went, you know what I
Mm.
mean? Because you can't replace, what I mean? People think they can replace somebody, but it's not the same. You know what I mean?
Sure.
It's just not the same. So now the fact that is I knew everybody in the music industry, or at least a very good portion of it. And my job at the time was at it was the Village Voice's sister publication, the Long Island Voice. Now, if you're not familiar with the Village Voice, it's one of the biggest publications in Manhattan.
Nice.
It's a very music, artsy, publication. It's really, like the Village in Manhattan. It was where it came from. It's very, eccentric. So
Sure.
that was the company that I was working for at the time, and I had done a bunch of the smaller publications and everything. So I was learning publishing and so forth, and sales and advertising and marketing and whatever, because that was in my blood also. And but I was dealing with all the music venues.
Mm.
So when I went to the Voice, um, they had asked me if I would be able to, because they knew that I was into photography as well. They asked me if I would be interested in going and covering an event with one of the writers, Bill Jensen, and it had to do with wrestling. They knew I liked wrestling. I was like, yeah, sure. They said they were going to pay me. I was like, no problem, because I'd been published before with photography.
Yeah.
So for me, it's just like, all right, it was just something fun to do. So I went down there and met a whole bunch of people that turned out to become friends later on. And as he's interviewing everybody, I'm meeting everybody as well. And I had finished up with Bret Hart and taking pictures of him, and then we did the Sheik. And as I'm walking up to Sheik, he's looking at me. He goes, you could be a wrestler. You look like a wrestler. I train you be wrestler. I humble you. I take you. I teach
I
you. I
humble
train
you.
you. Yeah, and I love Shiki to death. I haven't seen him in a few years, but love for that guy, man. And he's such an awesome person, and an amazing, he didn't train me, but what do you call it? I actually brought him in years later to train some of my students, to
No
do a
kidding.
guest thing, and what do you call it? And he was just phenomenal. He's a beast. That being said,
And what league was this that you're wrestling in?
what, me? Oh, I've been in a ton of different acronyms. You name the
Okay.
acronym, I've done it. But this was way after. With Sheik, he was kind of just coming at me, and then Eric Sims, Snapshot Eric Sims, was his manager and agent at the time, and I don't know if he's still working with him, but he's still in the business. But Snapshot starts talking to me, and he's like, what we call work, like, oh yeah, you can come down to Atlanta and he'll train you for X amount of time, and this is how much it'll cost, blah blah blah, and you could do this, or you could bring him out here, blah blah. And I'm going, whoa, slow down, like, ease up, hold on. And Brett was getting ready to leave. I believe he had to head back down to WCW or Nitro or something, back then, but he was definitely in WCW at the time. And he pulled me to the side. He knew I was there to do the interviews. We met earlier. He said, listen, I heard you talking to the Sheik. And he goes, listen, if you're really interested in getting into the industry, here's my email address. Feel free to give me a shout, and I'll, if I can guide you in any way, I will. So I
Wow.
appreciated that, and I thanked him. I didn't know if he, did that often, or if it was just like I got lucky type of a thing. But he knew I was there, and I wasn't just some kind of a stranger. I was there with the publication. So I took the email address, and as I was looking through a wrestling magazine, a couple months later, I reached out to him. I was like, I found a thing called the Long Island Wrestling Federation, the Doghouse. It's a new school, and what do you think I should do? And he said, this is what you should look out for. Blah 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 blah. And I went down, and
What are
that
some of
was,
those things they saying to look out for?
man, the professionalism,
Mm.
how things are set up, the instructors, there was just so many different things. I mean, listen, there's
Is there a lot of politics in wrestling?
a tremendous amount of politics in wrestling, and you've got to be very careful. And things now are very different than what they were then. I'm removed from wrestling at this point. I really don't. I don't do anything with wrestling at this point, except
Sure.
for every so often if a friend of mine asks me to watch a match, or give some feedback. I'll do it, simply because I'm still part of that brotherhood. But for the most part, and I'll look out for some of the girls that I've met over the years that have asked me questions and so forth. One of them is Machiko Palmer. Machiko is amazing. I know she did something over at AEW not too long ago. I
Nice.
see her working with WWE eventually. I think I think she's definitely got
She's
the
got the
chops.
material. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh,
But
wow.
she's gorgeous. She's great. She's really she's a good worker. So I'm proud of everything she's done. And I met her before she was getting into it. We met in Austin at while I was signing at Wizard World convention. And yeah. We she told me what was going on. I told her I kind of paid it forward and told her what to look out for. And she was, and I told her, I said, stay away from the boys, like don't get involved with the boys, no relationships, because
Right.
that's for girls, that's a bad thing in the business at a certain level. Well, at any level, to be honest, at least it was back then. Because then the boys don't take you seriously. And you never want that. You want to be taken seriously.
Yeah.
So that being said, I went to the Long Island Wrestling Federation, to the doghouse, and that was my home. That's where I was. That's where I came out of, and from there, like,
Is that where you developed the name Brimstone there?
yeah. Well, in the it's funny because, okay, since I was doing the band and I knew about marketing,
Mhm.
and since I had a sales history at this point, now I knew sales, I knew branding, I knew marketing. I said to myself, if I'm going to do this, I need to have something that's marketable, memorable, something that has legs and I can do stuff with. Because there will be a day that you won't be able to wrestle anymore. Then what do you do? Where do you go from
Mhm.
there? What happens? And a lot of boys, they wind up they're working in gas stations and retail stores, and there's nothing wrong with that. But when you're doing things and you're in front of people and you're building a name for yourself, to kind of take a step in a different direction like that is heartbreaking to them. And I've seen it a million times. And again, there's nothing wrong with working in those places or having those careers. It's just that when you're in one area, where you're either on TV or you're in front of crowds, you don't even have to be on TV. You could have just worked in front of crowds and people cheering you on, and then then you find yourself pumping gas. It can break people.
Yeah.
And again, I don't want anybody to be insulted, because there's a need for everything in this world. You know what I mean?
Right.
So that, being the case, I even though you're not supposed to be thinking about your character and your name and so forth prior to becoming a professional, I was thinking of names and gimmicks every time I went to drive it to school, because they were about an hour away from me. So we had a long ride in and then a long ride back.
Mhm.
So that being said, we had a lot of time to kind of go over stuff and figure out what works, what doesn't work. I did that with my name, and I did that the with the tag team name, and the what do you call it? We had a few of us that had put together a little clique, and people that I got into the business with, and people that were getting into the business at the same time. And these are some of my closest friends today. And
Sure.
we what do you call it? We toured, and I started with like literally 10,000 names, got it down to 1,000 names.
Wow.
What do you call it? Then got it down to a few hundred names, down to 20, 10, and Brimstone was always there. It jumped off the page at me. And then we didn't have the internet like we have now. I had to make sure that nobody was using the name, what was happening with the name.
Wow.
And I went in, I
How
went
did you figure that out then?
microfiche. If you've never heard of it, look it up. It was in the
Okay.
libraries, and I had to figure out, who was doing what in the different territories, because there's different magazines and so forth. So I'd sit and scour and look through things, and the microfiche had all of the, all the different things that, like publications and all different information, kind of like a computer would, but all in, paper format. But it wasn't paper; it was, yeah, it's a microfiche. So that being said,
Cool.
That's brilliant.
Yeah.
I found out that was the name. I knew I could market it. I knew it would be memorable. I didn't want to be the guy that went into the ring and got his ass handed to him. That wasn't my thing. So
Do you ever wish social media was around at this time, because you were so ahead of things, and your connotation and ability to grow an audience and become synonymous with the region you're in? I feel like that would have translated so well for you onto social media, with starting that, progressive hill of, oh, it's building, and now the algorithm's taking it.
if I had social media then, things would be very different now. I think I'm in a pretty decent place right now. But if I had social media then, it would have been done. You know what I
Lights
mean?
out.
Yeah, because here it is. Like, you guys are young. There are people that are in this industry that also have a tremendous amount of talent. I'm talking about entertainment in general. And there, for a long time, there wasn't an outlet to show people, this is what I do, this is how I am. Unless you're on TV, or doing radio and or making appearances and traveling and touring. And yes, I toured, I traveled, I did as many different acronyms as you can think of in pro wrestling. What do you call it? That they're just too many to discuss. But you know, getting picked up and being written up in a magazine or being on a radio show or doing a television stint or doing whatever it is, that's how people saw you then. You know what I mean? You had to
Right.
work 10 times harder to be seen. Um,
Wow.
now, now social media there's an overabundance of it. So it's now harder to be seen again, but it's never been easier to be seen because
Right.
once you go out there and you work for it, people see you and they can go, oh, wow, I this is amazing. Like, follow, you know what I mean? Then we didn't have eventually we had MySpace, like what the hell was MySpace doing? Like,
Did you make a Brimstone MySpace account right away?
oh God, yeah, I had one of those. And what's funny is
what was like your style at the time? What were you posting about? Was it just raw content? Did you have like a vibe account?
It wasn't like now where where people kind of put things together where it's nice and pretty and looks all status quo. MySpace was all over the place. And I had conversations with a lot of other friends in the business. I'm talking about entertainment, and for the most part, like I'd post photos, and stuff like that and videos when we were able to, and that was it. Like I MySpace was for networking. That was like.
It was kind of like LinkedIn.
That was it. It's kind of like a LinkedIn, but with but with entertainers and just regular people, not just business.
Sure.
LinkedIn used to be just business. Now it's a little bit of everything also. But MySpace, I can't I can't with MySpace. But then Facebook came and everybody jumped onto Facebook. Then everybody jumped onto Twitter and Instagram and this and that and LinkedIn and it just steamrolled. TikTok, now Clubhouse. It's like, how much can you keep up with on a daily basis? So you have to be everywhere. That's the reason why I don't have the Brimstone name on some of these outlets, is because like Facebook took it back and gave it to me. Instagram would have, because now they're owned by Facebook, but now I'm already branded on Instagram as the real Brimstone. I'd rather not confuse people. And because it's verified already, I don't have to deal with it. Facebook's verified. Twitter's the only one that is not verified, and I'm at Entrance to Hell on there because that was back when with the gimmick. My website was entrancetohell.com because somebody stole brimstone.com. You know what I mean? And it's just, at the end of the day, I was a little bit late to the game because I was old school and I didn't know how important that stuff would wind up becoming. But now I do, and now I'm ahead of the game. So, and even now, Clubhouse, because they only took the iPhones, I didn't get my at Brimstone because I'm on Android and I couldn't get on and start an account early.
Yeah.
And then I went after.
Do you have people that follow you and try and
don't...
go after your names and stuff and your likeness and your brand before you can on stuff like that? Do you
Everybody tries to. I'm sure. Do I know? There are plenty of mimics out there. That's why, I always push for verification, like on Twitter. But Twitter is the only one for some reason that has not verified me. What's funny is, even on Giphy, are you familiar with Giphy?
No, I'm not.
Giphy is with Giphy is with all the GIFs. If you go to giphy.com/GHR, that's my account on Giphy. I'm verified there. And we have well over 1 billion uses of our GIFs. You know what I mean?
Wow.
Like it's so those GIFs are used on Twitter. Like
right.
Come on,
Right.
But and what like I had a much higher count Like before they did a purge, I was at like 133,000 followers on Twitter. I was really on it with Twitter
You
for a long
were.
time. That was my outlet. And what do you call? They did the purge, and it purged a lot of bots, which is fine. I don't care about that, but it also purged a lot of real people that just hadn't used the account, or they went on and they just looked instead of liking or commenting. So you lost a ton of traction in the number, and then they still hadn't verified and done anything. And when
Mm,
I'm trying to contact or talk to or interact with other friends and other celebrities on Twitter, they don't necessarily see it unless you are also verified,
verified.
because when you're looking in, you can see the verified first before everything else. That's how it works on Twitter. So at the end of the day, it is what it is. One day eventually they'll figure it out. But
One
until
day.
then,
Yeah.
I'm stuck.
I
But
had
yeah,
one
if we
more
had if
question
we
with
had
the. Oh, sorry. Keep going. Keep going. If you
no,
had.
but if we had social media then, it would have been incredible.
Yeah. Back on the wrestling thing, do you think you have any residual head trauma, or do you think from the acts that you guys are doing, and all of that sport and work, do you think there's any residual like body or mental things that come from doing that?
My well, there are for a lot of people. For myself, I was lucky. My head, I just had, after years and years and years of not doing it. It was one chair shot that some indie guy who didn't know what he was doing got in the ring, and I saw him coming at me with the chair, because he thought that he was doing it right. He had the chair the wrong way, and he hit me the wrong way, and I didn't get to block it quick enough, because I turned around and it was there. And what do you call it? It cracked me in the skull, and I'm pretty sure it was a chip of bone that just started building and building and building, and I wound up having like a lump on my head for many years. And I just got that
Oh,
taken care of about a year and a half, 2 years ago. I
no
just had it
kidding.
taken out after 10, 15 years. That was there. My knees are not what they used to be. I have
Mm,
bone spurs in both my shoulders. My back is not the way it should be, but I'm in a lot better shape than a lot of the other guys out there. You know what I
that's
mean?
awesome.
And I'd be in better shape if I was able to spend the time and go to the gym again, especially after the pandemic. But what do you call it? I've also gained a lot of weight that I didn't have, which is putting extra pressure on those joints.
Sure.
So hopefully I'll be able to kind of get through that and get past that soon enough. We'll see what happens. It comes down to time and and the effort I'll put in. But it has to fit into the schedule.
Sure. So where did the path take you after wrestling? What was the next iteration of your entertainment career?
So I pulled out of wrestling when I pulled out of wrestling, and I had decided to, all right, look, I wanna kind of get back into entertainment, not just wrestling. I wanted to figure out what I needed to do in order to save my body and continue to build and brand on the Brimstone name. So what I did was I started thinking, what's the next natural progression? So for me, everything always comes down to the next natural progression.
Mm,
And the next natural progression is, wrestlers in general are what? They're real life superheroes, right? They're in the ring, they look larger than life, they jump off the ropes, they throw people around. I mean, you have your faces, you have your heels, the good guys, the bad guys, and
mhm.
so I said, well, the next natural progression would be a comic book. So I was like, well, let's do a comic book. And I didn't want to do a wrestling related comic like WWE was doing, simply because it was not a fun comic book.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because they needed, if they did it a little differently, I think it would have been a lot more successful. But what I did was I took my gimmick as because I was a gimmick guy. I knew my gimmick, and I decided, let me take this and spin it into a comic book. And I contacted one of my friends, another person that went through wrestling with me, Marcello Carnevale. At the time, it was Lord Clarence McDougal, and what do you call it? He was a writer and a screenwriter, and I told him, I go, what do you think about doing a comic together? And he's like, sounds interesting. Let's get together and talk. We sat down for the infamous cup of coffee that at a diner, and what should have been like an hour turned out to be like a 5 hour writing session, where we wrote out like the entire Bible of the Brimstone of the Borderhound series. And what do you call it? That was
That's
the
such a
beginning.
cool session.
Yeah, that was the beginning of the comic. And we tightened it up over time and so forth. And the next step was, all right, well, I need to put together a team. And I put together a team of killer people who I'm still very close with today. And we don't get to see each other or speak to each other as often unless we're at conventions together. But what do you call it? My artist, my penciler, Sajad Shah, is huge at this point. Like at that time, I found him on DeviantArt, and I brought him to the dance, and he's doing stuff like with Ninja Turtles and
Wow.
DC and Marvel and Image and all that jazz now, and he does cover work, and so he's insane, and I love that kid to death. Good heart, good, amazing artist, and with him and some of my other partners, shoot, man, I had Thiago Castro from Brazil. He was the colorist, and he took over inking from my original inker, who was also a great person, Alan Chickering out of Texas. And like there was somebody for everything. You know what I mean? And
Is it a like shit ton of labor to get through building an entire comic book like that?
Yeah, it is. It really is. And a lot of people like to think that it's comics is a fool's game. The fact is it's a lot of fun, and it's a lot of work.
Sure.
And what do you call it? Meaning fool's game, meaning that it's child's play and it's so easy to do. It's not easy to do. It's a lot of work. And a lot of people don't want to put that work in. They get one issue out and that's it. Or they get no issues out because they don't realize how hard it is. Brimstone of the Borderhounds was born, and for me, that was a great triumph. I wanted to show how big my thing was. So I said, all right, well, we're going to release in Borders books, because Borders was at the time a big deal. So we released the Borders books. Borders wound up announcing that they were closing, their stores about a couple months later. So I went in, I took everything out of Borders books, and then I relaunched worldwide in Barnes & Noble and B. Dalton's.
Smart.
And what do you call it? And then we were the only independently owned and operated comic that was with Marvel, DC, and Image, and I think Dark Horse, which was at the time was amazing. Now I don't know, it's not even Barnes and Nobles as much anymore. But
Are you on Amazon too with the books too?
I was, yeah. I think they still are. I believe they still are. I've kind of, even though I oversee Hound at this point, I'm not as active with Hound as I was, simply because Grindhouse Radio and the Brimstone stuff has got me crazy.
Yeah, so I wanted to ask from an entrepreneurial perspective, are you tying all this into one business under an LLC? Are you a sole prop? Are you splitting everything up? What was sort of like the trajectory of building the entrepreneurial side of it, and where are all the businesses at now?
So, my first actual business, believe it or not, was a partnership. We did it under a DBA, and I was young. So how old are you guys?
I'm 21.
21? 22. Okay. So my first business I started when I was 17. And what it was, and close your ears, people who are faint of heart, I did a thing called Dr. Peckerhead's Let's Play Dr. Sex Kit. And what do you call it? And not a lot of people, I don't talk about this often, so not a lot of people know about it. But this is it was a hidden gem, I'll tell you that. And the reason why I did this was because at the time, one of my friends from private school, who also was in my band, Private School, him and I were besties at the time, and his girlfriend, her father was a doctor, and he was working for the father, and he was able to get, he was doing the work for him, dealing with Malaysia, and he was able to get these latex gloves for like dirt cheap. So I was joking with him one time, and I'm like, hey, can you get condoms? He's like, probably, let me look into it. And he looked into it, and if we bought like 10,000 condoms, we would get them for 3 cents each. So, or 2 cents each, or maybe it was, I don't remember. It might have been even less.
Whoa, what a hustle.
So I was like, okay, so it's going to cost us X, Y, and Z and blah, blah, blah for that. And you can get the latex gloves. I said, so we have a lot of condoms to use for ourselves, but we could also resell them and do that. And let's try this. And I came up with this little character that I called him Dr. Peckerhead. And I drew out this little instruction manual. And I went around and I priced out, at 17, priced out all these like little white boxes and stuff that goes in it, and stickers, and we designed the stickers, and
That
what do you
is
call it, and then we
fantastic.
found out the face masks, not like the ones today. They were like the round ones, that you could put over your ears, the old style of
Yeah.
the doctor masks. And what do you call it? We took them, and I created this little kit. We had the little pink shreddings in the white box, and it had the three condoms and a mask and a what do you call it? A pair of latex gloves and the instruction manual. And then we were like, well, we need to get it shrink wrapped. So I found a place that was actually in Uniondale, where I grew up. There was a place that helped the special ed kids,
Yeah.
where they would have the opportunity to have a job. So I what do you call it? So they did the shrink wrapping there. So I was able to take these boxes there because they didn't know what it was, and I had them shrink wrapping them. So they shrunk wrap everything, and then I went door to door to all these different adult places and so forth. And I sold them to all these little adult shops all across Long Island and in Manhattan. And then I also sold them to in bigger lots to a place called World Imports, which used to be in the malls, and Spencer's, which I'm sure you're familiar with.
I'm yeah, very
Yeah.
familiar. No
So
kidding. What were
yeah,
you selling? What were your margins? What were you selling per product to
so
store?
our cost came to like a buck and change, and we were selling them to the stores for about $5 a piece, and then the stores were selling them for like $10 a piece. And what do you call it? It
Wow.
was stupid.
The margins on that
Stupid.
are insane.
The numbers we were kids making a ton of cash, and what do you
This is
call it?
just another example of if you had social media when you were younger,
It would have I would have
entirely
killed it.
different.
Killed it.
Entirely
Um,
different story.
so now my plan was with him, I was like, we could do so many different things. We already have X, Y, and Z, so we could just package the condoms however we want to package them. We could then package just a single glove and call it the what do you call it? A self masturbation kit. What do you call it? Dr. Peckerhead, and just like build the brand out.
Do you
And
still have stickers or a
I have a
sketch of
box.
this?
I have a couple of the boxes. Yeah. Very few of them.
I want one of those.
Yeah,
I
Very
would
few
like
of
to get
them.
my hands on.
I can show it to you, but I can't give it to you because I only have a couple. And I'll
Deal.
tell you why. I'll tell you why. The reason for that is because my partner at the time, it was time to go to college, and even though I was staying local, he was going away to Penn State, and he left. He had all the stuff at his house, which put everything on pause because I couldn't get my hands on it. And what do you call it? All of a sudden, that started dwindling a little, and I needed to redo everything. So I got in touch with his parents, and I'm like, "Can I come pick up the stuff?" And they had thrown everything away.
No way.
So they got
No.
rid of all of the stock of everything we had, which was all the condoms and all the gloves and everything. So yeah, so we wound up being done. And that was my first foray into business. And it wasn't my fault that we shut down. And we were making good money for kids, man. You kidding me?
Yeah.
If we would have continued with that and rolled with it, because it was a fun item. They were buying them for bachelor and bachelorette parties. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
It was
exactly.
cute. So over time it could have been something really fun. But that was my first foray into the entrepreneurial space. But you also got to remember, entertainers are entrepreneurs, and entrepreneurs should be entertaining. So as a brand myself, I'm consistently selling myself and having to build my brand up and sell my brand and market my brand. So people need to understand that you guys as entertainers, as hosts, you are your own brands. Then you're a brand within the brand.
Mhm.
In terms of, I know there was a question prior, with the different how things are set up. Well, Hound Comics Inc. We're a corp, so we're S corp.
Nice.
What do you call it? So it's Hound Comics Inc. Hound Entertainment Group. The Grindhouse Radio is a separate corp. Originally, it was under the umbrella of Hound, and we pulled it out and separated it because it's a different animal than Hound is,
Sure.
and different people are involved. So we branched off and built out the Grindhouse Radio Inc. And that's an S corp as well, and everything else is underneath the different corps. And then a lot of things I have under DBA, and I didn't have to do anything else with it. But, under, that being said, what do you call it? What I've done is, I built out under like Hound Entertainment, all the Brimstone branded products like my sauce and seasoning lines and, and this, like my coffee line, the candy line, and all of that is all intertwined with the comic books, and all that is intertwined with also the Grindhouse Radio. Everything I do is tied together in one way, shape, or form. So, a lot of people don't realize that, but that was all done intentionally. So, like for instance, the sauce and seasoning. The reason why we have the sauce and seasoning is because I did Food Hound Tidbits. The reason why I did the show Food Hound Tidbits is because I was out promoting, the comic books in the comic book company. So when I said to my director of operations at the time, I said, his name's Eitan Wish. He's still like a little brother to me, and he said to me, he goes, well, I said to him, well, I don't want to be in the trains, planes, and automobiles and going into arenas and doing this and doing that and never seeing the towns and the cities that I'm in. He goes, well, what do you want to do? I said, well, I like to eat. He goes, well, yeah, we know that, Brim. I said, oh, shut your mouth. And then I said, then he said, then I like to talk. And I said, I can obviously talk. He's like, yeah, we know that too. I said, shut up, Eitan. And what do you call it? At the end of the day, I go, why not do a food series? So that was before YouTube and social media had all these foodie things like everywhere you turn. Sure. So we started Food Hound Tidbits, and we did that while we were on tour. We went to mom and pop hot dog shops and 5-star restaurants, and we started building that out. So that brand was built, and then from there, I said, well, what's the next natural progression? Sauces, seasonings. I want to do this. Long story short, I hooked up with John Hard, who's the godfather of hot sauce. Wow. And what do you call it? We put out the Brimstone branded line of sauces and seasonings, which are all my creations, as well as my buddy Bumblefoot, who was the lead guitarist for Guns N' Roses for a long time. Him and myself, and we put out our sauces and seasonings, and then we toured and supported that, and branded those products. Now those products, I wanted it to work seamlessly with the comics. So what I did was inside the comic, they're in a bar, in the middle of hell, and it's called Heaven. And so the bar is called Heaven, complete with stairway. If you're a musician, you should get it. Stairway to Heaven.
Nice, yeah.
And so in it, the guys are eating like sweet heat treat wings and flavor behavior this, or grub munchies, which is one of my candies, and grindhouse burgers. And they're sitting and eating all these products. Each one of these things is available in real life. So now the branding and the marketing is already in the comic books. So the comic fans now can buy the stuff in real life, and the people that are fans of the sauces and seasonings now can find out that it's part of a comic book, and it's all intertwined. And I mentioned Grindhouse for the Grindhouse burgers. It's because Brimstone is always grinding. I'm in the house of grind. I work hard. I never stop. So the Grindhouse Radio was born. You know what I mean? So the Grindhouse Radio is tied to the Grindhouse seasoning, tied to my history. So everything works together. And people, kind of like look at it and go, well, what does this have to do with that and that? Well, actually, there's a lot to do with it,
a ton, right?
And it all works together. So that's basically the story in a nutshell, and I had a good time. Always have a good time building new products and building stuff out, and licensing deals are always fun. And my esport backpacks deal was fantastic.
How did that work? How did you secure that?
You want to hear? It's a fun story. I don't know how much time we have left.
Yeah, no. If you have to go, do you have to head out anywhere or anything? Or?
No. I have another interview a little bit later, but I have some time. That's fine.
Okay. Yeah. I got about like 30 minutes left.
Okay. I just wasn't sure how long you went. That's all.
Oh yeah, no, I'm good. I've recorded some of these for 3 hours, 4 hours.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
There we go. So, I'm sorry. I hope I'm not boring you guys.
No, I'm so fascinated, Brim.
Yeah,
you are
awesome.
First off, I want to say thank you, A, for coming on the show, and B, your your manner and ability to diversify your portfolio while all tying it in, and just that brand connotation and all that. You were literally social media savvy and marketing savvy and business savvy before it was popular and before our generation even got onto it. So like
Yeah.
it's extremely impressive to see. And
Well,
so
thank you.
is what is the format for the radio show too? Is that every week, every day, or
Okay, so the radio show we record the Grindhouse Radio, which is our flagship brand, on Monday nights. We also do a small show called Live and Uncut, which we're doing video. It's live, so this way people can kind of join in and hang out with us. And we're starting to build that up. It's very, very slow going because we were never doing video up until recently. So where we're doing 3.5 to 4 million listeners weekly worldwide on the podcast side and the audio side. On the video side, it's like, all right, come on, let's work it out, make it, because people with a podcast,
that's
people
where I'm
can
at.
listen whenever they want. You know what I mean? They can listen to whenever. But when you're watching a live video, it's not this. It's you have to get on at that time and be there. So that's happening a little bit at a clip. So we're doing live and uncut. Monday nights is also when the Magic Kim Tom comes out. My two of my partners do the Magic Kim Tom for Magical Mondays. Tuesdays I do Within Brim Skin, which I also record on Mondays. That's my rant show. This week I missed, which I'm sad about because what do you call it? But I was doing something at the time, and I was like, you know what? I can miss one episode.
Sure.
That being said, I have enough content out there. But and some of my fans got very upset about that. So I'm sorry, guys. I'm sorry. But Within Brim Skin comes out on Tuesdays. Also, the new show that I'm doing that I also record later today. I record on Thursdays. For Monday, this is the second show we're doing, is the Dirty Little Secrets Club. So I'm doing that with my gal pal Dana Pereira from that Trophy Wife Life, and she's awesome. She's an amazing marketing person, and the two of us are doing that together. Then Wednesdays I do at 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time live with my co-host Mr. Greer from Grindhouse. He's one of my partners as well.
Sure.
We do a live version of a show called Truly Inconsequential. So Truly Inconsequential is different characters in pop culture history that we're deeming that if they didn't exist, it wouldn't have made a difference to the story of the show and so forth. So we have a lot of fun with that, and people are really starting to take to that, and they're starting to come in. And that was a new show that we just said we're going to do it live. We'll do it there, and then we'll put it up for video and for podcast also. So that's just a fun show we do. And then Thursdays, GHR launches and
Nice.
comes out 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and it goes everywhere. And for us, I had a very specific way of how I wanted to do it. We started as a 1 hour show. It was two of my co-hosts, and who are now my partners, started as my interns at Hound Comics. So they were my interns. I knew they had interest in radio and broadcasting because they'd done it before in college and had gone to school for it. So I took them and I said, "Hey, what do you guys think of doing a show?" I'm thinking I have the grindhouseradio.com. I have this idea because prior to that, I reached out to a lot of different local networks and I said, "Hey, are you interested in doing something with me?" They've had me on hundreds of times, in terms of doing interviews. So it's like I figured, well, let's maybe do a show together. This is my idea. Crickets, bro. Crickets.
Really?
I didn't hear anything back. And so I like I said, I looked at other things and I spoke with them. We sat around, at Hound in an empty desk with a microphone and a laptop after hours, and we just went for it. And after an hour, we were like, this could work. This is going to be magic. The following, over the course of the following year, is when we got picked up by iHeart, which was actually picked up by iHeart, not like how it is now. Things were different then.
Right.
It was a big deal. So we moved to a 2 hour format. And when we moved to that 2 hour format, we started bringing on guests, which were friends of mine. So, again, I've been in the industry for a real long time. So
Yeah,
if
you've
you go
met
to
a
the
lot of
grind,
people now.
I know a lot of people. If you go to the grindhouseradio.com, the guest list is up there. We've had well over 300, guests on, and other people that have dropped in or lent their voice and so forth that, it'll spin your head. And they're all, from different genres of entertainment because I've been in all different genres of entertainment. So that being said, I was very specific about wanting to have it, because people don't have a um I guess an extensive um amount of time that they can pay attention. They have a very low attention span.
Oh,
And 15, 20, 30 minutes is right around that sweet spot. So what we do is we have, over the course of 2 hours, we have six 15-minute segments, because you asked how do we how's that
yeah,
set up.
format. Yeah.
So our format is six 15-minute segments. In between each of those, there's a 3-minute mini segment based on something different within the world of entertainment and pop culture, whether it be a foodie segment, video games. We've got sports, we've got music, and we've got comics. Okay,
Nice.
so those are the six segments. Each of them, most of them with different hosts. And we also have Leading Ladies. Leading Ladies is done by Amy Palmero Winters, who is a crazy, crazy, amazing woman. She's she's a world record winning paraplegic. What do you call it? Paraplegic, yeah, with one leg.
Yeah.
So she's a Paralympian, and she
Wow.
is phenomenal. Has crushed world records by the dozens.
Sounds like
So
a beast.
she's incredible. She makes fun of me all the time because she could kick my ass, and now she really can't kick my ass, but she probably could. But anyways, no. That being said, she does Leading Ladies, which we wanted to put in some women, female empowerment and women's empowerment in there a while back, and she took that and ran with it. But anyway, so in between we have the three segments. Then we do our, what do you call it? We usually have our drops in there, like, hey, this is so and so, and you're listening to the Grindhouse Radio, and then we have our advertising. So that's how that works. And then it goes back into, the next segment. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
So what that does is that breaks up the monotony of the same voices over and over and over again. Even though I could go on forever, obviously, it's good to have that broken up. So there's, we did a deal which was NDA then, but we're out of contract now, so we can talk however much we'd like. But
Sure.
we were in bed with Google for a while, and we had a contract.
How was that
with Google.
relationship?
That was strenuous, to say the least.
Mm.
They wanted us, out of all the podcasts that were out there, they had like a top 20 podcasts based on numbers and so forth and format that they wanted to work with, and we were in their top 10 out of the top 20. And the
Wow.
reason for that was because they loved our format, because it was all shorter periods of time. The segments
Yeah,
were
that gig
15,
economy, it fit
yes,
perfectly for it.
and that held the people's attention span. So that being said, they asked a lot from us, and we did a lot for them. And then what they were going to be doing with us, they wound up not doing the thing that they were going to bring into Google Play. Was that Google Play? Google Podcast. They were going to like do an update, and then we were going to be part. And then they wound up not doing that update, so we wound up not working with them after like months and months. We worked with them for a year and months of work, and you're like, what? So given the fact that we're well off, we make money, we're, you know what I mean, and all that jazz. The fact of the matter is like, we would have rather saved some of that money and not had to spend it on people doing all that work. But it is what it is. We work hard, and it is what it is. And but we know for a fact that our format works well, simply because Google knows all, so Google told us. And
right.
And that being said, here we are. So we're award winning, and going back to the whole radio station thing with the crickets. Well, we won over all of those radio stations 4 years in a row, best radio station on Long Island. So,
hell yes, that feels good, doesn't it?
So when you tell me, when you either don't tell me that you want to do something, well, I'm sorry. So if you tell me I can't do something, or you don't want to listen to me or hear me out, you're making a mistake. You know what I mean? Like, I'm just gonna prove you wrong.
Right.
So 4 years straight, 2017, 18, 19, and 20, we won best radio station on the island. And we were like, yeah, that's enough for us. We don't need to continue to pursue it. And
Wow.
you know, and we made our statement. And you know, at the end of the day, we made our statement. And we've won so many other awards. I mean, we like to give back, and we do a lot of charity. We put a lot of time in there. You know,
Awesome.
we got a 2020 New York State Senate Empire Award based on our contribution to society and to the community when you know, everything was going on with COVID. I mean, I personally went down, and there's a reason why I'm telling you this, not because I want accolades for it. It's
Sure.
because it's important for people to know that doesn't matter where you are in you know, the world, and on the scale of life, you should always be giving back and always be helping others.
I love
When
that.
COVID was going on and COVID started, there was a big issue where people, obviously, they weren't able to go to work. Everything was shut down. They didn't have money. They didn't have, you know, some parents, single parents, or parents that were having issues. You know, their kids weren't going to school, and school was where they were relying on school to feed them because they have, you know what I mean, they're through the system, and they, you know, they get free lunch and free breakfast.
Sure. Yeah.
So, and sometimes those are the only meals of the day these kids are getting. And I said, there's no effing way that I'm going to let that happen. And I contacted some friends over at Walmart, and you know, and I said, listen, I'm about to make a big donation, and I think you guys should make a big donation as well. And you know, this is what I'm doing. And I heard the food bank was very, very low. So, you know, where everybody else was scared to go out, as was I didn't want to be out, but I personally went down with a few $1,000s from Walmart, a few $1,000s from GHR, and I personally did the shopping and did everything, and hand delivered all the stuff to the food bank, trucks of stuff, and you know what I mean, just
Wow.
piles of you know, like, of things in there. And you know, we spread that money, you know, out really, really nicely. And
Wow.
you know, and we didn't ask for anything, you know,
That's the best.
we didn't go after media. We didn't do anything because guess what? You need to pay it forward. You need to do the right thing.
Hmm.
You know, and because somebody, you know, is you got to understand, people are less fortunate, and it's not for lack of trying. Sometimes it just happens that way.
Right.
So we were blessed that Senator Kevin Thomas, who's one of the local senators, and we do some stuff together. So he knew what we did, and you know, he awarded us with that. That's the highest honor a business can earn in New York State. You know, and then right after,
Congratulations.
thank you,
Oh,
thank you.
yeah,
Right
man.
after that, we got the Communitas Award, which is similar to that. We won a gold AVA digital award for podcasting and audio. We just won another award. I forgot the Communicator Award. So like we're just, you know, we're consistently moving, you know, and consistently growing. And you know, that's all from sitting around a microphone, you know what I mean, wondering what was going to happen. So as long as you
Truly.
work hard, people, you never know how much you can grow and how much you can build, but you got to work for it. You know, and that being said, also, when people doubt you, you need to prove them wrong. That's it.
I like that.
You know.
What has been one of the, like, at the end of the day when you go home at night, right? We're all humans and things happen, and life gets difficult. When you were feeling times of failure or points in time where you're like, I'm not sure what's going to happen next, or, you know, for me, it might be, all right, making sure I can make this payroll, or when you're like, oh, is it going to be okay at the end of the day? And you just, you know, commit and give faith. What for you has been the biggest driving factor that keeps you going no matter those times?
I'm going to answer this, and then I actually do have an interview at 12:30. I
Okay.
forgot about that.
Totally fine.
Sorry about that.
No, totally cool.
So it just popped up on my phone, and I go, uh-oh.
Yeah. No,
So what do you call it? First of all, and just understand this, failure has to happen. Failure is part of the recipe for success. You can't be afraid to fail. Matter of fact, failure is what helps you to learn and helps you to get better. But you just have to be smart enough to pick up, learn from what you've done and done wrong, and then make those changes to move forward 10 steps. So you can't be afraid to move back to, you know, a couple of steps to move forward 10. You know what I mean? And that's my
Really.
take on, you know, failure. Never be afraid of failure. There's so many things that I've accomplished. You've seen everything that I've accomplished. there's plenty that I haven't been able to accomplish. Not too much, but I'm just kidding. But there's certain things that they sit in the closet, and I pull them out, and come back at them when I have the time. Sometimes it's just basically lack of time to follow through on some things, but 90% of the time I'm always following through on everything I want to do. But I really hope that I hope I answered your question.
No, it definitely does. Definitely does. So thank you, Brim, again for all of your time and being on the show. I would love to run it back sometime in the future. Do another episode. Keep diving in. I feel like there's so much to explore within your story. And any last words or piece of wisdom you want to leave for someone if they're listening to this?
One, please definitely check me out on all my official website, therealbrimstone.com, and any of my social media. If you're reaching out to me, I am the one that's responding. I'm the one that my assistant doesn't touch it. My wife doesn't touch it. My kids don't touch it. It's me. So be respectful. I will answer any questions and comments. You know what I mean? I will respond. I will engage. That being said, I want to leave people with one last thing. And that is simply, find something that you're passionate about. Find something that you really feel could be helpful to other people in terms of charity. And whether maybe somebody who had cancer, or somebody who had leukemia, or children's, or this, or whatever it is that you have some passion for, and whether it's an hour a month, an hour a day, an hour a week, a week out of a year, or whatever it is, give back a little bit. It doesn't you don't have to have a ton of money. You don't have to spend money to give back. Spend a little bit of time, and that time giving back to somebody who needs it, paying it forward like that. You never know how much that means to somebody else that is in that position and situation. So I urge everybody to go out there and do that for not just for others, but for yourself, because it makes you feel good too.
Truly. And on that note, we're going to finish up here. Brim, it's been a pleasure. Thank you again for being on.
Honor and a privilege, guys. Thanks so much. It was a pleasure hanging with you.
Awesome. Cool. Peace, folks. Peace, folks. Peace, folks. Peace, folks.